wants you to believe that salvation is only through their organization. Don't let anybody tell you any different. In fact, we can even read some watchtowers that testify to that. For example, the Watchtower, 1950, January 15th, page 26, says, Jehovah's visible organization can use you, but can get along without you. But you cannot get along without it. Fruitless ones are eventually pruned off and never missed, as new ones are grafted in. Pruned off branches soon wither and die, being cut off from the circulating, life-giving sap. That's interesting. Who's that life-giving sap? Apparently it must be the organization. The 1983, February 15th, page 12 Watchtower states this: to receive everlasting life in the earthly paradise, we must identify that organization and serve God as part of it. Once again, salvation is through them. Now, here's the funny thing. Those watchtowers I just read, they were back from the 80s and 70s. So this is what you get. People who are in denial, the Jehovah's Witnesses that are in denial, will say, well, that was old watchtowers. We don't go by the old watchtowers, right? It's funny. It kills me because the organization is only 140 plus years old. They're not even 150 years old yet, right? They started in the late 1800s, okay? So 140 years, that's two 70-year-old women living back to back and then dying, right? It's not that old. But somehow they get our minds, they get us to believe that they've been around forever, right? You know, I feel sorry for the young children who grow up in this organization, because they have no idea. They think that this organization's been around forever. That's, you know, and then of course they try to misinterpret Isaiah 43:10. You know, you are my witnesses is the utterance of Jehovah. When of course, if you just read from verse 1, you'll see that's talking about the Israelites, and they teach the Israelites are rejected. We'll talk about that in another class. But it's interesting because they get you to believe that they've been around forever. They've only been around 140 years. So to try to make the statement, well, those are old watchtowers, it's really not that old. It really isn't. But I know how hard-headed some JWs can be. So let's put the nail deeper in the coffin. Let's read another watchtower. Let's read the 2013, July 15th, page 20. It says this: that faithful slave is the channel through which Jesus is feeding his true followers in this time of the end. It is vital that we recognize the faithful slave. Our spiritual health and our relationship with God depend on this channel. Once again, bamboozled by a building, tricked by a building, tricked by a religion, right? To believe that they are the only channel, the only organization that God is using. It's a lie. It's a complete lie. But they get us to believe this. Let's prove that. Let's prove that. Let's look in this book. Let's look in this book and see if there's only one organization that's being used. Let alone is that one organization the Jehovah's Witnesses. Check this out. Let's go Mark chapter 9, verse 38 through 40. That's Mark chapter 9, 38 through 40. And we're going to see if there's only one organization that God is using today, known as the Jehovah's Witnesses. So what is the setting here? This is Jesus and his apostles And the apostles come up to Jesus to tell him something. Let's see what they tell him. And John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and he followeth not us. And we forbade him, because he followeth not us. In other words, the apostle John came up to Jesus and said, Jesus, we saw someone over there expelling demons in your name, using your name. We told him to stop. Why? Because he's not with us. We tried to stop him. He ain't rolling with us. He ain't part of our group, our crew, our religion. He ain't with us. They're not with us. We're trying to stop him. Help us. Do something about this. What did Jesus say? Verse 39. But Jesus said, forbid him not. What? I'm sorry. That must be mistaken. No. Jesus must have said, hold on. I think Jesus said, tell them to stop because they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. No, it says it right here, verse 39. Jesus said, forbid him not, for there is no man who shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. Verse 40. For he that is not against us is on our part. In other words, this other translation would render it, he that is not against me is for me. 41. For whoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because ye belong to Christ, verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. Now that's interesting. When you ask a witness, and again, any religion that's teaching that they are the only organization, the only religion that teaches the truth, when you show them this and you ask them, what is that reward that Jesus said you're not going to lose? What is that reward? If they're going to be honest with you, they're going to tell you, well, it's everlasting life, immortality, going to heaven, whatever you believe, right? Jesus said you're not going to lose your reward. That other group, that other camp, that other organization that's not part of you, but they're teaching Christ, they're teaching Jesus, they're not going to lose their reward. That's what the Bible tells you. So, lies, right? But, Mike, come on now, that was before Jesus died. Once Jesus died and Holy Spirit was poured out at Pentecost 33 CE, you had the establishment of the first century Christian congregation, right? They were one organization. Or so the Watchtower says, right? Well, let me tell you this. I don't care what an organization may say. I really don't care. If Jesus himself said, don't try to prevent this other person or group, because if they're for me, Christ, they're not going to lose the reward. I don't care what any organization says, what they try to come up with. It doesn't matter. It does not trump out what Christ said. It don't trump out what this book says. Period. Not to mention Pentecost, that's Acts chapter 2. Remember, before Christ died, he said, I'm sending you a helper. And guess what? He sent that helper out. In Acts chapter 2, the Holy Spirit was poured out. Now, everyone receives this gift, this free gift, the Holy Spirit, and they are able to teach. The Holy Spirit teaches them, and now they in turn teach others. Acts chapter 2 cannot be used to try to say that there's one true organization, and that's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Right? You can say Christianity. You could say that, right? You could say Christianity. But to say it's one organization, one group, no, that's a lie. That's deceit. They're bamboozling you. They're tricking you by a building and what that building stands for. But again, I know how hard-headed these JWs can be. So let's put the nail deeper in the coffin. Let's look at another one. Go to Romans chapter 15. Now Romans, this is after Jesus died. Let's see what Paul said. Romans chapter 15. Now let's look at verse 19 and 20 and see what Paul said. Surely after Jesus died, Paul now said, well, there's only one true organization, and you must be in line, in harmony with that one organization, that religion. And the only way to gain salvation is through them. So stay with them. Because we are the only ones preaching. That's what Paul said, right? We're the only ones doing this thing. There ain't nobody else out there. Let's see. Romans chapter 15, verse 19 and 20. Here's what it says. Verse 19. Through mighty signs and wonders by the power of the Spirit of God, so that from Jerusalem and round about Iconium or Illyricum, I have fully preached the gospel of Christ. Right? Paul's letting you know, I preached as far as Jerusalem, all the way to Iconium, or Iconium, however you say that name. He said, I fully preached the gospel of Christ. Right? He preached everywhere. Or he covered a large area, right? Verse 20. Yea, so have I strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build upon another man's foundation. Hold on. Let me say that again. Yeah, so I have strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build on another man's foundation. In other words, what he's saying is, I made it my aim, my mission, not to declare the good news, not to preach the good news about Christ, where another man was already doing so. Now that's interesting because, remember, Paul was chosen by God to preach to the Gentiles, which were non-Jews, non-Israelites, right? That's who he was commissioned to preach to. The other apostles preached to the Jews. Paul was commissioned to preach to the Gentiles. Okay? So my question is this: who are these other men that are preaching Christ to Gentiles? And why did he liken it to not wanting to build on another man's foundation? Why did he say that? Could it be? Well, it's not could it be. We know what it is. It's because there were other people, other ministries out there preaching this word. It wasn't just him. So he couldn't say that. Remember, Paul said, imitate me even as I do of Christ, right? Paul knew what Jesus said. Jesus said, don't try to prevent them. Don't try to stop them.